Hey everyone. So it has been a while since I've done one of these product videos, but I'm back with something little different today. Now, this isn't about book states, well, not directly, but it is related to the way I have been actually getting my earnings over the years, which is design. So here's the thing, when I was building book states, I didn't use Figma as my key design tool. And that's not because I forgot how to use it after being a design manager for a while, but it's because the whole way we design is shifting right now with AI. So, what I'm going to show you today is basically me taking my own process and turning it into an actual product. But before I jumped into the product demo, I need to give you some context. And I know that nobody wants that elaborative setup, everybody wants the payoff. But just stick with me for like 5 minutes here, and I promise it will make sense once we get to the good stuff, which is the product. So, what you see on the screen is a deck on designing in the age of AI. And as we discussed, AI is changing how we do design. So, when it comes to doing design, I want to talk about two phases here, understanding and going from understanding to ideation. Now, I know that there is this whole IDEO design process and double diamond and whatnot, but as a designer and as a design practitioner, it all boils down to these two phases. So we begin with an understanding, and understanding means that you need to know your domain deeply. You need to understand the user and business needs and their goals. You need to have a solid understanding of constraints, be it technical constraints or business constraints. And then you also need to have a good understanding of user journeys. And also, in all of this, you can't forget the information and the data. You need to have a good understanding of that too. So once you build a solid foundation on your understanding, that's when you go to the ideation phase where you lay down the initial information architecture, the structure, you lay down the scaffolding of the app, and then you go into high fidelity designs with the interface and the flows, and also motion design. Now, obviously, this entire thing is like non-linear. It's not like going from step A to step B. It requires iterations. It requires certain loops. Now, what is happening today is the changes that we are seeing in this ideation phase, where now a lot of prompting is happening. And we see that people are directly going to Figma Make or Cursor or Claude and directly prompting to get the designs. But prompting requires clarity of thought. It requires good structured articulation. And the output that you get from AI is best described as probabilistic, right? Because it's not exactly what you intend to. It gets close, but it only gets close if the above two criteria of having good clarity of thought and structured articulations are met. And what we also see is that prompting can become like really expensive for iterations, and it can have diminishing returns when you don't have a solid grounding in your understanding of context, data, and information. So if I have to boil it down into a single sentence, prompting is structured thought with probabilistic outcomes, and clarity is the only currency here that compounds. So if I have to put this in a very simple equation, it becomes like prompting is clarity divided by entropy. And entropy here is nothing but the randomness in the output that you see from the AI. So if you have very good clarity, you will reduce your entropy and you get better at prompting. But getting clarity itself is an iterative process. And I believe that iterations should not be expensive, both in terms of time and money. And more importantly, the iterative decision making has to be with the human who knows what good looks like, right? It is not something that when you're prompting you want to outsource your thinking, because that very well defeats the purpose of you being a designer, right? And then you become replaceable. So the idea is that when you are trying to bring that clarity, when you're iterating, the decision making has to be with you. So if we go back to our two phases, uh, there is no shortcut of understanding, right? You still have to go through all the research, you still have to do all the hard work to gain a good understanding of the domain and the problem space. But when it comes to ideation, what I believe is that you can gain maximum clarity during the structuring phase, right? This is the phase where it should not be expensive to understand the information architecture, the structure, the wireframing, to lay down the scaffolding of the app. Because the problem is that if you don't get this right without any clear structure, you are asking AI to solve for both what and how simultaneously. And this leads to high entropy, right? This leads to outcomes which you don't like usually from prompting. And this can also lead to expensive iterations. So the idea is that you have to gain structural clarity with quick, cheap iterations with your own thinking, right? And then use prompting to generate the interface. And this is where I would like to introduce this product called as TypMo, where the idea is that you want to externalize your thinking with the design vocabulary that you already know, right? You can simply type it out at your steep speed of thought, compose it or generate it. You should be able to iterate very quickly and cheaply and get that structural clarity with like audits, and then generate build ready prompts for Figma or Claude or Cursor. So the idea is that in this information architecture, the wireframing zone is where you try to build that clarity and then go ahead to get precise prompts that then you can use to get the desired output, and hence reducing that whole entropy. So I think that's what laying the context was all about. Enough of tell, and I would like to show you now what I have built so far. So let's go to the TypMo interface, and this is what it looks like. A little different for designers, but you do see the familiar dot grid canvas on your right. Now, the idea is that you should be able to quickly lay down the structure of the app through very simple wireframes and information architecture, and from there experiment a lot there, iterate a lot there, and then go on to get the prompt and build the app. So we will take an example of a simple B2B sales CRM. So I was thinking about what example should I take, and I searched for the web, and I came across this example of a company called as Ricochet 360, and they have like a fairly good example here of a typical CRM, where you see that there's a performance report of of vendors, and you can see certain basic metrics, costs, leads, certain graphs related to that. And suppose that you are working on something like this, and you want to gain clarity about what information should go where, how would you like to structure the information, because once you get that right, building this should be fairly straightforward. So let me go to TypMo, and let's begin with the manual mode, where you are actually literally typing out the entire structure. There are TypMo supports different modes also, but let's start with the manual mode here. And this mode is something which I love to call as being a TypMographer. It's a take on being a stenographer, when a stenographer with their shorthand will quickly write down things and then elaborate it later. So the idea is pretty much similar here, that as a TypMographer, you should be able to use your existing design vocab and iterate or experiment in the wireframing stage. So let's get started. So let's say our objective here is to make a simple B2B sales CRM dashboard, right? Something similar to what we saw in the example here. So let's start laying down the structure. Let's say that okay, we have the header here. It has a logo. It has something for notifications. It has an avatar, right? So you have the header here. It has had a sidebar too. So let's lay down the sidebar. Sidebar can have things like let's add a menu item here. Let's call it dashboard maybe. Let's have another menu item here. Let's call it like sales. I'm just giving random names here, and let's call it leads, right? Okay, so on. Let's get to the main part here, and let's put a certain heading, right? So let's have a section heading. It's called as performance, and let's add a button here. Okay. Okay, good. We're good. And in the example, we saw that they had a tabular structure here, so they had something called as vendors, agents, agent status, and all of that. So let's say that when you are working on your own app, you have something similar. So let's add the tabs here. Let me add the tabs, and let's add. You have a vendor tab, you have an agent tab, and I think you had one more, agent status. Okay, I'll correct the spelling here. Cool. Right now we saw that within the vendor tab they had certain charts. So let's go to the vendor tab. Right. Okay. And within the vendor tab, they had certain matrix, and they were all in a grid pattern. So we say that, okay, I have, let's lay down matrix. So you have a certain metric card here. You can copy paste. I'm just typing it out. Another metric card here, another metric card here, and then let's go for the last one. Okay, and then we also saw that they were displaying certain data visualizations. So let's add them. So I have, let's say, a cost pie chart. Cool. And then let's say I have a leads bar chart. Right. Awesome. And they also had one more total leads chart, something like that. So total, let's go outside this tab maybe, or we can stick in there. So total leads chart, right? So we have this in here. So you see that I was able to very quickly, lay down this structure. There is no need to, do all that, GUI stuff and drag and drop components and all of that. I'm thinking about the structure and I'm just laying it down. Obviously, you have more options to do the same in other ways in TypMo, but this is the TypMographer way to do it. Now, let's say that I have done this thing and maybe, I want to connect one of these charts or one of the cards to another screen. So you can do that. You can create another screen in TypMo and connect all of them. So let's say we have this leads bar chart, and I can say, you know what, connect it to the screen here. And you see I've connected to the screen. If you click on it, you go to the next screen, right? So you can connect as many screens as you want. So at least in terms of flow, you will have all the clarity here. So we have laid down a very, very simple CRM, sales CRM here. And let's say you want to check how good it is. So you know what, you can run a simple audit here. So let's say just type audit, and you will see this button getting enabled now. Run the audit. It takes like a few seconds to get it all right, and we'll wait for it. Basically, it goes through your overview, the strength, improvement, potential risk, metrics, and whether you are meeting your objective or not. So it takes like about 20 seconds to 30 seconds to get the report done. Okay, so here we are. It will give you a brief summary, right? That based on the objective that you define, how good it is. It will give you certain key recommendations. Tell you about strength, that there's logical content grouping, clear navigation path, but there are a lot of improvements here, right? In terms of information hierarchy and navigation completeness. And it also tells you potential risks, right? That the user might be confused due to inconsistent navigation elements. And it also has very simple detailed metrics around information hierarchy, content grouping, navigation clarity, and whether you are meeting your objective or not, right? So based on this very simple UX or IX audit report, you can make changes here. You can play a lot here and play as much as you want, right? Because this is cheap and this is fast. Now let's say that you are happy with what you have made here, and now you want to see it in reality. So click on generate prompt, and you can generate prompt either for Figma Make or Claude Cursor. Let's say I select Figma Make. So in the interest of time, I'll just show you like one of the versions that I've created for this particular sales CRM. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty detailed. It gives you the overall visual style, aesthetic direction. And by the way, you can hook in your own design system here if it's on a remote MCP server. So we'll cover that later. But this particular prompt will give you detailed layout structure, everything that you have defined here. You can just copy it and paste it in Figma Make. So I have gone ahead and done that. So I went to Figma Make, pasted the entire prompt, and this is what the result looked like. So you see now that in prompt generation, I didn't have to define all of this in pretty detail because I've got all that clarity during the wireframing stage, and this is what the result is. Now we know that this is like not perfect, but the whole idea is that when you begin prompting, it's not so easy to get the structure right, and that's why it leads to a lot of iterations, right? So it's better that you get your structural clarity, paste it here, and job done. Cool. So now let's say that you don't even want to type so much, right? You simply want to generate something based on the idea that you have, and you just want to begin prompting here itself. So let's take another example. Suppose that you want to build something like LinkedIn. So let's go to generate, and I'll paste a prompt here that just create a social media interface like LinkedIn. Simple 3 column layout. Left sidebar has some navigation, profile summary. Center column has the feed, and then the right sidebar shows some trending topics and suggestions. Now you can obviously define your target persona, your primary objective, key features, and everything. And the more you define, the better the output will be. So let's click on generate, and again it will take a few seconds to generate that particular wireframe. Okay, so here we are. It's already done, and you now see that based on your prompt, it has created a very simple wireframe for you. And obviously the whole idea of TypMo is that you should be able to quickly go to the architecture panel and edit all of it out, right? So this is the way that you can also generate simple information architecture wireframes or IA wireframes through the generate mode. Now what I've done is that this was a very simple example, but I've gone ahead and took a relatively more complex example of a recruitment dashboard, wherein I actually gave the prompt to generate a recruitment dashboard with a lot of details there, and there is a persona here, objective here, and you will see that this particular wireframe that we have here is pretty dense. It has a lot of things going on here. Now this is where TypMo becomes magical, because let's say that now you want to generate a full blown working prototype out of it. You go to generate prompt. This time you go to Claude cursor, and you can select your tech stack, and based on, and if you don't know about it, you can just select any and let TypMo and then Claude cursor do its job. So in this case, you can select a particular tech stack and go ahead and get the prompt. So I've already done it. Let's see it, one of the versions. So now you see that this is a very, very detailed prompt on how to make a workable prototype out of this particular IA structure. So here you see that it tells you what kind of application type it is. It describes the key features here, describes the user flows, success criteria, and this is where it gets really helpful and interesting, because now it will lay down the complete project structure for you. And this is where if you're not a developer, if you're not an engineer, we get stuck when we want to develop a full-blown prototype, because we don't have that much know-how of the technical side of things, right? So this is where this prompting can help you a lot, because it will lay down the entire project structure for you. It will lay down the data models, TypeScript interfaces, detailed component breakdown. There's a lot going here: routing, navigation, everything, even state management is covered. And from there you can just copy it to your clipboard and paste it into cursor or Claude, whatever be the tool of your choice. So again I have gone ahead and done that, and I'll show you what the output looked like. So this is what cursor generated for me, right? It's a full blown interactive prototype, true to the wireframe that you made earlier. And if you can again switch between all these tabs, and you can see that it has everything now. It's not perfect, but it's a very, very good starting place for you, right? So it has interview scheduler, candidate pipeline, job management, dashboard, all the things that you simply described. You got all the clarity in TypMo. You got the very detailed prompt. You just had to paste it in cursor and got the job done, right? So this is awesome. Now I want to show you one more thing, right? So suppose you don't even want to have the prompt here. You don't even like to generate the IA through the prompt. You rather prefer to quickly sketch out something and let TypMo do its job. So let's say that you made uh, a wireframe like this. Don't judge me for my drawing here, but a very very simple wireframe that you have just sketched it out, and you just want to go ahead with that. So you go to TypMo. There's something called as import, and what you have to do is, let's take it here and let's import it. Now this will take a little bit more while because it goes through your entire wireframe design, and it will identify the right set of components, and then it will make the wireframe for you. Now what is interesting here is that once this is all generated, TypMo also has a share mode where you can simply share this entire IA structure wireframe with your stakeholders and get the job done. Okay, so here we are. It has created already a basic wireframe, and suppose you're not happy with one of those things. Let's say I have the button right next to cases here. Perhaps it can be optimized. So let's go here and let's call it cool. Okay, so now we have sorted out. So the power of TypMo is that there are all these modes to generate these structures very quickly, and you can also edit them at any time. So experimentation gets very cheap, right? You can experiment as much as you like before you go ahead to do detailed prompting, and this is where TypMo shines. Now as I said, you can always share something. So let's say that you tap on this share, you copy the link and you share this link with your stakeholders, and this is what the share mode looks like. And even your stakeholder can comment on anything, just like Figma, right? So you tap on this pin and let's say here, and we say let's add more data here. Okay, and let's submit it. So you see that just like Figma shows you the comments in the prototype, in the design, you can do something similar on TypMo too. And if you tap on it, you can see all the feedback and you can resolve them, or delete them if you like. Okay, so now you see that TypMo has a lot going on, and I have not even covered all the features. There are some very interesting things like you can change the way wireframes or the structures are generated. So this is the default TypMo one, but you can go to the minimal one, right? And or maybe a more wireframe one, whatever you like. There are also some funky ones like blueprint. Cool. And then you can also see the mobile responsiveness of it, right? Just switch to the mobile tab and you will see the entire thing generated for mobile responsiveness. Cool. To get you started, there are also certain templates here across different industries. And well, there are also things like, dark mode and light mode. Cool. So I'm pretty excited for you to try out TypMo in all the modes. TypMo is free to use. You can use up to 2 projects. Well, you can anyways, always delete a project and, create another one in place of that. As far as generation is concerned, you can generate 5 different prompts. You can maybe add 5 images per day to make the wireframe. Right now, TypMo is available on a very discount pricing of only $30 per year, which is the discount pricing or the launch discount pricing, which will get to $80 maybe after 2 months. But more importantly, I think you should go ahead and try it out for your different use cases. It's very powerful. It has all kinds of componentry in place so that you will not feel that your design cannot be implemented here, right? So this is awesome, and I'm very very excited for you to try it out. So do let me know what you think about it. If there's anything which is missing, I would love to have your feedback here. Thank you.